All right. We are in the middle of the 10th parak of Masechah Shabbos in the Mishnayos over here. We are now getting to one of the most fundamental Mishnayos in the entire Masechta. It's a Mishnah that we have referenced in the past, that we've touched on, but today we'll look forward to learning it in depth. The Mishnah says the following: Hamotzi kikar l'reshus harabim. That let's say someone, hey Jamin, good to see you. Let's say someone carries out something into the reshus harabim, into the public domain. So then chayev, okay, this is we know this already, that you're going to be liable, right? You carry something out into the public domain, you're liable, right? We spoke about what the requisite amount is. We've spoken about the shear, but right, okay. So a quick review, one sentence of everything we learned in the first, the end of the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th chapter. Hamotzi kikar l'reshus harabim chayev. Good. Hotziu shnayim. Let's say two people carry it out. Okay, I'm holding on to one end of the loaf. You're holding on to the other end of the loaf. Hotziu shnayim. Peturin. So then we are both exempt. Neither one is liable. Off the hook. Continues the Mishnah. Lo yachol ha'echad lahotziu v'hotziu shnayim chayav. However, if this is something that's too heavy for one person to do, and it's a two-man job, you can't use the excuse of hotziu shnayim that we learned over here, that if two people carry it out peturin, that if it's a two-man job, so then you're both going to be chayav. Okay? However, Rabbi Shimon poter. Rabbi Shimon says, no, regardless, whenever two people do a malacha on Shabbos, you are completely exempt. So where does this come from? What is the source of this halacha? So if we take a look at the Gemara in Shabbos on Daf, it comes up in a couple places, obviously right over here where our Mishnah is referenced, in the 10th chapter on Daf Tzadi Beis. Also, though, it comes up right in the beginning of the Masechta on Daf Gimel. The Gemara on Daf Gimel in Masechah Shabbos teaches us the following. Says the Mishnah, Tanya, Rebbe Omer, Rebbe taught the following: Me'em ha'aretz ba'asosa, that the pasuk by the Karban Chata says that if someone violates one of the laws of the Torah, that would be obligated to bring a chatas, that would be obligated to bring a sin offering, it has to be ba'asosa. You have to do the malacha, or you have to do the prohibition. Ha'osa es kula, v'lo ha'osa es miktsasa. You have to do the entire malacha, ha'osa es kula, however, not v'lo ha'osa es miktsasa, however, not if you did only a part of the malacha. Yachid, v'osa osa chayiv, shnayim v'asu osa ota opirin. If one person does the malacha, then they're going to be liable. If two people do the malacha, they're going to be off the hook, going to be completely exempt. This is the halacha of shnayim sha'asu, two people doing one action on Shabbos. And the Mishnah teaches us a klal. It's a machlokas, but the Mishnah teaches us, at least according to the Tanakama, which is how we paskin, that if it is a one-man job that two people do together, then you are going to be pater. However, if it's a two-man job, you can't use the excuse anymore of ha'oses kulo v'la'oses miksasa, that you have to do the entire thing yourself. And shnayim shasu would not be a patur, because being that it's a two-man job, you're doing everything that needs to be done to get the job done. As opposed to Reb Shimon, it says no, that regardless, when two people do one malacha, even if it's a two-man job, a three-man job, a four-man job, doesn't matter. You are going to be you're going to be off the hook. So we saw that this stems from a gzeres hakasav. This stems from a pasuk related to the Karban the Karban Chatas. That by the Karban Chatas it says me'im ha'aretz ba'asosa, you have to do the action ha'oses kula ha'oses miktsasa. The question is that how far do we take this patur, which basically really comes to the question of how do we define this exemption of Shnaim Shasu. So what we really find is that there are four opinions found in the poskim. One opinion is a very famous opinion because of how stringent the opinion is. This is the opinion of it's quoted in the Avnei Nezer. It's quoted by the Sakhachev Rebbe. This opinion is also quoted by Rabbi Kiva Eger, and it actually is the way that Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan Spector, Paskin Elchanan Spector of Kovna, was the Posek Hador. He passed away in 1896, and Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan Spector was an unbelievable Gaon Olam. He was an unbelievable genius. In fact, Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan Spector has a number of very famous tshuvas, a lot of famous tshuvas, a lot of famous responsa in the area of heter agunos, which is that if someone, God forbid, is in a scenario where their husband went missing, whether or not they are able to get remarried, and the being that they don't have they never received a get, and the other area that Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan Spector, there were a number of famous tshuvas, but another very famous tshuva is with regard to the heter mechira for the Shemitah year, selling the land to non-Jews, the land of Israel to non-Jews during the Shemitah year, things of that nature. But he has a very famous tshuva about Shnaim Shasu, where he feels as though Shnaim Shasu, when two people do one malach on Shabbos, as the Mishnah says over here, Hotziu Shnaim Peturin, that if two people carry it out, then they're going to be pater. He says that the patur over here is a patur chatas, that you would not have to bring an offering to the Beis Hamikdash. However, you violated an isser in the Torah. You violated the Torah commandment of thou shalt not do work on Shabbos, of Shamar B'nai Esa Shabbos, that you did not observe Shabbos by doing so. You have violated Shabbos. However, you violated Shabbos in a way that you would not have to bring a carbon to the Beis Hamikdash. Yeah, Jamin. Jamin, you there?
There. Now he's there.
Jamin, did you had a question? So if your audio is working well, please share your question. But we'll continue in the meantime. So this is the opinion of Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan Spector, that there is still an isser deoraisa. This is still a biblical prohibition. However, it does not result in the obligation to bring a carbon. There's another opinion in the Achronim where no, this is not an isser deoraisa. It's clearly made it's made clear in the Mishnah over here that it's a patur chatas, and whenever the Gemara in Shabbos or the Mishnahs in Shabbos use the language of patur, it means pater of al usr, that it's a isser derabanan at most. It's only a rabbinic isser. However, it's certainly not an isser deoraisa. However, there are some achronim, namely the Shol Meshiv, or Shol Nathanson, was a major Yeki posek in the 19th century. So he feels as though there is no Isser D'Oraisa. However, there's a lack of a fulfillment of a positive commandment. What's the positive commandment? Of Ubishvi Tishbos, that one is obligated to rest on Shabbos, meaning that there's two sides to the halacha of not doing work on Shabbos. There is the prohibition of not doing work on Shabbos, that one is not allowed to let's say, all the malachas we've been discussing, plowing, carrying, planting, cooking, right? You're not allowed to do those things. There's an isser. You're not allowed to. But then there's also the positive side of it, that by refraining from those things, I am treating Shabbos with respect. I'm resting on Shabbos, ubishvi'i tishbos. So says the Sholem Meshiv, he says that therefore, if one were to violate Shabbos through the means of Shnaim Shasu, where two people do it together, granted, you have not violated the Isser D'Oraisa of don't do work on Shabbos, of Lo Sa'aseh Bo Malacha, don't do work. However, you have not fulfilled the positive commandment of Ubishvi Tishbos. There is a third opinion found in the Achronim. That's the opinion of the Chacham Tzvi. The Chacham Tzvi, he is of the opinion that that really our pasuk that we learned, again, this is a pasuk by the Karban Chatas. This is not a pasuk related to Shabbos, which we'll get back to whether or not Shnaim Shasu applies to other areas of halacha. But really, all we find is that there is a exemption of having to bring a chatas. However, you can't say that there's no Isser D'Oraisa here. Why? Because we paskin, and we've spoken about this in the past, we paskin that Chetzi Shir Asr Min HaTorah. That, let's say, the example the Gemara in Yuma Daf Ayin Dalet is discussing, it's also discussed in the Gemara in Shabbos on Daf Ayin Dalet. The Gemara has a machlokas in Rabbi Yochanan or Reish Lakish about whether or not there is an Isser D'Oraisa for me to, let's say, eat half of the minimum requirement to violate the prohibition of eating meat and milk. Okay, so I have chetzi shir. So I have half a kazayas of a cheeseburger. Okay, half a kazayas of a cheeseburger, is that an Isser D'Oraisa? According to Reish Lakish, no, not an Isser D'Oraisa. That's at most an Isser D'Rabbanan. However, according to Rabbi Yochanan, he gives two reasons why that is an Isser D'Oraisa to eat half a kazayas of a cheeseburger. So basically, if you nibble from a cheeseburger, says Rabbi Yochanan, that's an Isser D'Oraisa. Why is that an Isser D'Oraisa? He gives two reasons. Number one, he goes from a pasuk, kol basar. Any amount is prohibited. Granted, I'm not going to be punished unless I have the full requisite amount to get punished, which is a kazayas that's eaten in a certain period of time. Okay, fine. Wonderful. However, there is still an Isser D'Oraisa over here to eat any amount. And then he says even further, he says this is going to lead you to eat more. Chazi leads to rufe. You're going to end up eating more. If you have one bite of a cheeseburger, you're going to have two bites of a cheeseburger. And before you know it, you're going to eat a whole Happy Meal. That's why it's still an Isser D'Oraisa, says Rabbi Yochanan. We paskin like Rabbi Yochanan, so therefore comes along the Chacham Tzvi and says, so you can't say Shnaim Shasu is any different. When two people carry out let's say a big bench into the public domain, so if they carry out from their house into the public domain, so you can't say that, oh, it's only an Isser D'Rabbanan. What do you mean? That's Chetzi Shir. I did half the malacha. By the way, Reb Chaim Soloveitchik thinks that is completely wrong. Which, if we have time, we'll get to Reb Chaim Soloveitchik's analysis about Shnaim Shasu. He thinks that analysis is completely wrong because he basically says that it's not called doing half the shear. It's not that you're doing half of the malacha. It's that by Shnaim Shasu you're not doing any malacha. But that Reb Chaim Soloveitchik disagrees with the Chacham Tzvi. But the Chacham Tzvi says that it should be no different than Chazi Litz Terufe. If I carry out half of the bench, I'm going to end up carrying out the entire bench. If I carry out half a loaf, I'm going to end up carrying out the entire loaf. Now, granted, over here, the entire loaf is being brought out. So, okay, next time I'm going to kick out the other guy and say, don't worry about it. I can do it all myself, right? And therefore, I'm going to end up violating Shabbos on a real level d'oraisa. I'm going to be obligated to bring a carbon for such a thing. So, therefore, the same halacha of chetzi shir should apply. The fascinating Rabbi Chanan Wasserman, by the way, I should just point out about chetzi shir, where Rabbi Chanan Wasserman, he discusses in his Shirim Abava Basar, he discusses whether or not chetzi shir still has a shame isser, or is it its own separate thing. Basically, when I eat half of the cheeseburger, half the kazayas of cheeseburger, is that a prohibition of eating basar b'chalav, or is that its own separate isser of doing a chetzi shir of a prohibition? That's an interesting analysis of Rabbi Chanan Wasserman. But anyway, back to our sugya. So we've now gone through three opinions how to define Shnaim Shasu. Either it's mamish still an Isser D'Oraisa like Rabbi Hanan, like Rabbi Hanan Spector. It's an Isser D'Oraisa. It's just not one that you're going to have to bring a carbon about. Just it's an Isser D'Oraisa violating Shabbos in our example. The second opinion is the opinion of the Chacham Tzvi, where it's not an Isser of violating Shabbos, midin violating Shabbos, and that you just aren't going to bring a carbon, but rather you're not going to bring a carbon because it's only Chatzi Shir, and Chatzi Shir is still Aser. There's another opinion that we saw from the Shaul Meshiv, who says that there's definitely no Isser D'Oraisa here. However, there's a lack of a fulfillment of a positive commandment of being restful on Shabbos, of Ubeshvi'i Tishbos. However, the three opinions we just listed are not the generally accepted opinions. These three opinions are not normative Judaism. These three opinions stand alone. The main opinion is that of the Rambam, which is cited in the Shulchan Aruch. This is the opinion that is accepted by Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, by the Avnei Nezer, the Mikdash David, Reb David Rappaport. He was a gaon. He was unbelievable. The Mikdash David is a great story. So I just spoke about Rabbi Hanan Wasserman. Rabbi Hanan Wasserman had a yeshiva it was a preparatory yeshiva for students to then go on to major yeshivas like the Mir, Panovich, the Baranovich yeshiva, Slobodka. The Baranovich yeshiva was really for like younger students to prepare them for that very, very high level of learning. So when Rav Hanan Wasserman got his hands on the Mikdash David, it might not have been the Mikdash David. It might have been, I think it was the Tzemach David, which are Rav David Rappaport's commentaries on Rabbi Kiva Eger's responsa. So when he got his hands on it, he saw that the Torah of Rav David Rappaport was unbelievable. What he did is that he sent him a letter. Rav Hanan Wasserman sent a letter to Rav David Rappaport and said, I want you to come and give shir in my yeshiva because you're unbelievable, Talmud Chacham. I want you to give the top shir. Take my spot. Come give the top shir. So he sends him back a letter and he says, thank you so much for the gracious offer. I appreciate the vote of confidence. You should just know though that I'm not married. So Rabbi Hanan Wasserman went to go discuss it with the Chavetz Chaim, and they thought that it's not an issue. Okay, so he's not married. He'll come. He'll get married. He'll start his life, and he'll start it in Baranovich, right? Not an issue, which was unusual back then. It was a very unusual thing. But anyway, he comes to the yeshiva. He's ready to start giving shir. His writings are unbelievable. The Mikdash David, the Tzemach David, unbelievable Chidushei Torah. He comes to deliver shir. He has a horrible stutter. He was barely able to speak publicly. And now he has the job of teaching the highest level shir in the Baranovich yeshiva, in Yeshiva's Old Torah. So now they have to figure out what are they going to do with this unbelievable Talmud Chacham. His writings are unbelievable. He's clearly a super genius. But he can't give a shir. So the Chavetz Chaim said he should continue to give the shir. The boys will start to understand him more, but he should certainly continue to give the shir. And Baruch Hashem, he did. We have all of those writings from the Mikdash David based on those shirim, which are unbelievable. So this is the opinion of the Mikdash David of Rav Betzalel Zolti, the Rabbi Shel Yerushalayim. He was one of the chief rabbis of Yerushalayim, who, by the way, you know what? It's worth it. Take a look at this. I have over here, this is his letter of appointment to becoming the chief rabbi. Look at this. This is the letter of appointment from when Rav Zolti became the chief rabbi of Yerushalayim. A little blurry. Here, look. It says, Rabbanei Ir HaKodesh Yerushalayim, that the rabbis of Yerushalayim, Habnu B'Meher B'Yameinu, all of the Rosh Yeshiva. They are choosing, they're appointing as Kavod, Maran Hagaon, Rav Yaakov, Betzal, Jolti, Shlita, Shavech al Kisei Harabanut Shel Ir Ozlanu, that he should take the helm of our great city of Yerushalayim. It's unbelievable, and it's dated. Let's see the date. It's dated. Where'd it go? It's dated. All right, I don't see the date over here. No, I don't see the date over here. Anyway, it's unbelievable. I believe it was somewhere in the 70s or the 80s, not so long ago, that Rav Zolti was appointed to be the chief rabbi of Yerushalayim, and his writings are unbelievable, Rav Zolti. So you have Rav Zolti, you have the Mikdash David, you have Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, and I heard my Rebbe, Rav Hershel Schechter, paskin this way as well, that the basic understanding, like the Rambam Shnaim Shasu, when two people do a malacha, that it's a one-person job, that is an Isser Derabanan. It's only a rabbinic Isser at most, certainly not an Isser Daraisa, and there's no obligation to bring a karban. This has a tremendous nafkaminas, halacha lamaisa. There's a huge difference between something being an Isser Daraisa and Isser Derabanan. When something is simply an Isser Derabanan, so the leniencies are much more. For example, the Shulchan Aruch paskins that for a chole she'ein bo sakana, someone who is interned, however, their life is not being threatened. For example, let's say someone has a terrible migraine, okay, which generally speaking, a horrible migraine is not necessarily life-threatening, right? Someone would not run to the hospital if they had a terrible migraine. There is medication that you take. You have to, it puts you out tremendously. It is extremely painful. You have to, you basically are interned for a certain period of time, and then you climb out of it. That is someone who would be considered a chole she'ein bo sakana. There is no threat to the person's life. However, they are sick. They are really sick. Such a person would be allowed to violate rabbinic prohibition on Shabbos. So an example of that would be taking medication. Medication for such a person would not be an issue, even though the Gemara says, which we'll come back to, that later on, and as we're going through Masechah Shabbos, when we get to the Derabanans, that there's a prohibition of taking medication on Shabbos, because you may come to crush up the medications and create the potion yourself. Fine, even though maybe that reason doesn't necessarily apply today. However, the mandate still applies, and therefore there's a rabbinic prohibition of taking medication on Shabbos. That does not include, again, I'm getting ahead of myself, but just important for context, that does not include preventative medication. So let's say, for example, someone has allergies, so they take a Claritin or a Zyrtec every single day, or nasal spray. So they can do that on Shabbos morning before their allergies kick in. However, once their allergies kick in, unless it's something that really makes them sick, so then they would not be allowed to take their medication. Preventative medication is okay, or medication if you are really sick is okay, or to keep you from getting really sick. So someone who's on antibiotics or something like that, those things are okay. However, someone who has a slight headache, a mechush ba'alma, as the Gemara puts it, someone has a slight headache, to take Tylenol in such a scenario, better that you drink some water, you ride it out, do some natural remedies than to take medication. However, someone who is really sick can violate Durabanans. Another example of someone that can violate Durabanans, the Gemara in Gittin has, Litzorech mitzvah, one can violate a shavus dishvus, that two Durabanans together, that are you have a triage of Durabanans, for this, that one would be allowed to violate that for the sake of a mitzvah. So let's say, for example, and this is a pretty common example, would be that let's say someone is away for Shabbos, and they're staying in a hotel. Let's say they're staying on the 20th floor of the hotel, one of those very, very, large hotels in the big cities. Okay, so this is where they're staying for Shabbos. Or you have in some some places have extremely tall apartment buildings. Okay, and let's say you are going to a Shabbos meal, or you're staying there for Shabbos, and you're staying on the 20th floor. So to walk up 20 steps on Shabbos, 20 flights on Shabbos, that is a tremendous tircha for a person. That would be considered l'tzorach mitzvah. I have a mitzvah of oneg Shabbos. I have a mitzvah to be able to actually enjoy Shabbos and not potentially hurt myself on Shabbos, right? I have a mitzvah of oneg Shabbos, and climbing up 20 steps, 20 flights is going to be very, very difficult. So I have a tzarech mitzvah over here. So what I could do is I could do a shvus d'shvus. I could do a double d'Rabbanan in order to fulfill that mitzvah. What's the double d'Rabbanan? So I want to be able to use the elevator. The elevator b'pashtus, electricity b'pashtus is a d'Rabbanan, okay? So if I walk into the elevator that is someone that a non-Jew pushes for me, I can instruct the non-Jew to, send me up to the 20th floor. Why? Because asking a non-Jew to do malacha for me in the first place, if I was asking a non-Jew to turn on the lights for me, at most that's an Issur D'Rabbanan of Amir La'akum. Okay? So that's one D'Rabbanan. And I'm asking them to do a D'Rabbanan for me, which is electricity. Okay? Again, I was talking about turning on, I should have mentioned, turning on an incandescent bulb, which would be a D'Oraisa. That would be only a rabbinic prohibition. Then I'm asking them to send the elevator in the direction I wanted to send it to, which would be a rabbinic prohibition. So I have two rabbinic prohibitions working in tandem for the sake of a mitzvah. That would be permitted. Shnaim shasu then would be no different. Let's say the example would be that someone just sent me a shaila that their kid accidentally turned on the TV remote on Shabbos, and want to know if they are able to turn off the television. So what can they do? Well, let's see. Turning off a TV is at most a rabbinic prohibition. Okay, being that under these circumstances we have to limit our contact with other people, letting other people into our homes. So therefore, going to ask a non-Jewish neighbor to turn off the TV for me is not really an option. So what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to leave the TV on al Shabbos? Of course not. What I'm supposed to do is me and another individual in the house can press the button together to turn it off. That's called Shnaim Shasu. Both of our energy together is turning it off. So Shnaim Shasu is only a rabbinic prohibition. Turning off a TV remote, turning off the TV is only a rabbinic prohibition. That's a shvush to shvush, b'makom mitzvah, for the sake of a mitzvah of oneg Shabbos. So then there's no problem of turning off the TV if two people do it together. Again, if it's for the sake of a mitzvah. So it's very critical. This psa from the great Gedolim, like Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, Rav Shechter, the Mikdash David, and the Avnei Nezer, that Shnaim Shasu is only a din d'Rabbanan, only an Issur d'Rabbanan based off of the Rambam. Let's continue to the rest of the Mishnah now. Hamotzi Ochlin. Oh, I should just mention before we continue one more note about Shnaim Shasu. It's brought down by the Minchas Chinuch. The Minchas Chinuch, Rabbi Yosef Babad, who was the Av Bezdin in Chernobyl. Is an unbelievable gaon. The Minchas Chinuch has a suffix in a couple of places. I know of two places, but it could be that he has it in more places. In Mitzvah Tesvav, and also in Mitzvah Tzadi Beis. The Minchas Chinuch has a discussion about Shnaim Shasu in other areas of the Torah. Right? We said before that this halacha of if two people do it together, that is an exemption. We learn that from the psukim by the Karban Chatas. Remember, by the Karban Chatas, it said, "Umeim haaretz ba'asosa b'shkaga." That a person does ha'osa es kula v'lo osa es miktsasa. You do the entire malacha yourself, and you don't have two people do it together. So if that's the case, that it's not an internal, it seems like from the Torah, it's not internal to Shabbos. It's just that by Shabbos, it's the only place that the Gemara applies that halacha, right? This pasuk is by the regular carbon chatas, which applies to other areas of halacha, not just the Shabbos. So the question becomes whether or not this halacha of Shnaim Shazu applies to other areas of halacha. For example, let's say I light up my grill and I want to cook a cheeseburger. So what could I do? So I'll get around the prohibition of cooking meat and milk. How? That you have two people turn on the fire together. You have two people take the burger and put it on the fire together. You have two people take the cheese and put it on the fire together. Good. I just cooked a cheeseburger by only violating an Isser Dirabanan, not an Isser Daraisa. So is that would that hold up? So the Minchas Chinuch in two places has a suffix about this. He's not sure whether or not it would hold up. It's very possible that it would. Rav Zolti wants to say that really it boils down to how we view Shnaim Shasu. Shnaim Shasu, a halacha about Malaches Machsheves, that it's not called a malacha, and really then therefore it would be internal to Shabbos, or does it completely remove the prohibition entirely of what you're doing, right? Is it action oriented or result oriented? That the result of what you did is meaningless because it was not done all by one person. That's what Rav Zolti wants to say. Anyway, it's a suffix in the Minchas Chinuch, whether it applies to other areas of the Torah. The Mishnah continues and it says the following: Hamotzi ochlim pachos mikashir bekli. Let's say two people. I'm sorry, if a person carries out less than the requisite amount inside of a object, so therefore they're going to be pater. So says the Mishnah, pater af alakli. You're also going to be pater on the vessel. Remember, we spoke about that. That Rav Elyashiv wondered about the Mishnah in the ninth, in the 8th chapter, where you have the ink. Remember, we spoke about the ink, the amount of ink one would have to carry in order for you to violate Shabbos. The ink is in a container, so if it's in a container, so remember, Rav Elyashiv was bothered with you should be obligated for violating Shabbos based on the container. So he pointed to this Mishnah, that this Mishnah makes it clear that the container is tafel shahakli tefelo, because the utensil is tafel. It's secondary to the object that you're carrying. Esachai b'mita. So let's say there's a living person in bed. Okay, I carry out the bed. The person's alive and doing well, and I carry out the bed with the person inside of him. Pater af alamita. So I am pater for carrying the person and the bed. We'll get to in a second why I'm pater for carrying the person. Shamita tefillah lo. The same principle applies because the utensil, in this case the bed, is secondary to the person. Es hameis b'mita chayev. However, if God forbid someone died and they're carrying them outside the house into the public domain, that would be a prohibition on Shabbos, and therefore you'd be obligated for the bed as well. Okay, and then the Mishnah continues, even small parts of a dead person or pieces of bone from a creepy crawly thing, you would be chayiv, you are liable. Reb Shimon Poter, Reb Shimon says you are off the hook in that scenario. So why is it that es hachai b'mita you're pater? That if someone carries out a living person into the Rishus Harabim, so you are going to be pater. So in really to understand this, we need to see a Mishnah in Masechah Shabbos on Daf Tzadi Daled. We need to see a Tosas Harash over there on Daf Tzadi Daled. We need to see a Pnei Yeshua on Daf Tzadi Daled. There's a lot that needs to be seen in order to understand es hachai b'mita pater, that when someone carries out a living person, they're pater. I'll just tell you what the terminology is for this halacha. It's called chai nosei es atzmo, that people have live weight. There's a certain live weight that we carry along with ourselves, and we know that there's the difference between if someone, you try to carry someone who's sleeping versus someone who's awake. They feel different. how it works. Maybe it works based off of displacement. I don't get exactly how it works, but it works. That there's a certain light, they lighten themselves a little bit while they're alive and well, as opposed to dead weight. So it's the difference between live weight and dead weight. The Gemara, based on this Mishnah, says that Chai Noses Atzmo is completely putter. There is, however, the opinion of Reb Nassan. The opinion of Reb Nassan, who's one of the Amoraim, says that this applies not just to living people, but this that are well. This applies even to someone who is sick. So let's say there's a part of the person that's dead weight. Let's say a person has a broken leg or something. So they're not in their entire being is live weight. And even, says Reb Nassan, it applies to animals. Live animals, this would be included. We don't paskin like Reb Nassan, we paskin like the Rabbanan, like the Mishnah. We're talking about a live and well person that you carry out. That is only a rabbinic prohibition, not a biblical prohibition. The question we're going to have to get to next time is why. And that's why we're going to have to see Tosas and the Tosai Rush and Reb Chaim and Yeshua, and it's Gevaldik Sugya. Why it is that Chai Noses Atzmo is putter. And we're going to see how it directly connects to how we understand Shnaim Shasu. All right. Like I said, this is a very fundamental Mishnah, and it makes sense why we're spending 2 days, 2 sessions on it. So God willing, next week, same time, same place, we'll talk about Chai Noses Atzmo. I can hang on for a few minutes if anyone has any questions.
I have one question, which was discussed on Monday. If 2 people carry up a